Okay, so here's another review of the all-new Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus here after using it for about 2 months. Let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, let's go ahead and start with the cosmetic side of things. In terms of how the phone has been holding up, it's been holding up beautifully, right? So I have 0 scratches on here, not a single ding on this phone here. The way it's built, it's built to be able to resist a lot of that good stuff. But then again, you have to keep in mind that, depending on whether you keep that in a case like I do, you may see different results. But it doesn't change the fact that this is built to be robust and resistant to, a lot of the scratches and the regular day-to-day things, right? So expect to see some of that stuff over time, and I'm talking long-term use, right? So down the road. Let's go ahead and talk about battery, because that's going to be one of the things that people wonder about as time goes by. And I'm here to tell you this: when you buy a flagship phone, your expectations on the battery should be that it should last you about 1.5 to 2 years in order for you to start getting concerned about the battery. This is, when it comes down to battery, it's not something that should be very concerning immediately. This should really be a very short part on this video here. The battery is holding up even better than it did at first, because obviously, in case you're not, aware, typically with these new phones, the system is set up in a way where it actually learns, the way you use your phone so that it can optimize battery life, right? So when that started, you have to remember this guy, by the way, we're looking at 4,700 milliamp. That is actually a fairly large battery for something that stands at 6.6 inches. In fact, the battery life here is better than what you have on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But anyway, so 4,700 milliamp here. And when it started learning my usage at the very beginning when I got this phone, so that very first week, I was already getting pretty close to 8 hours screen on time. By the way, to those of you not familiar, 8 hours doesn't mean that the phone dies after 8 hours. That's just a grand total of time that I spent using the phone, right? So I was getting pretty close to 8 hours. And of course, that meant that the phone would actually last pretty close to 2 days. After that, it actually went over the 8 hours. So I'm consistently getting more than 8 hours as a power user with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus here. Meaning, if you are a power user, you should be expecting something close to that. Again, this is subjective, right? So depending on what you use your phone for, so you may see more, or you may see slightly better. But I know that, based off of things that I read online, people are seeing fantastic battery life with the S23 Plus. So again, to reiterate here, the battery is very good and you should not be worried about that, at least not in the first year. Give it up to that at least towards the end of that second year to really start getting concerned. And also depending on how you charge, what types of chargers you're using to charge your phone, all of that comes into play. But generally, if you just use the regular charger and you're just doing regular usage of your phone, you should be fine for a little while. Anyway, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on to performance here. In terms of performance, top level. The platform, as many of you already know, is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 made for Galaxy phones, right? So it's tailor-made for this phone here to make sure that it is as optimized as possible. And it actually is the case. And in order to support that, what I have here is 256 gigs of internal storage along with 8 gigs of RAM. That is a very nice combo that makes for top level performance. Now, phones, the way I see them, are not really built for major projects. Some of these, top level chipset here are just overkill, because how many people are out there using their phone to run super heavy projects from their phone? By the way, I'm not saying that there aren't people who do that, but I'm just saying how many. Not many people do that. People who tend to have a lot to do would try to do that either on a large tablet or, maybe on a computer, on a laptop. A lot of people would just use their phone to keep connected with maybe major work or major projects, right? And be able to make moves here and there on those projects, but not necessarily launch all of that stuff from their phone. But if you wanted to do that, you certainly could, because the performance here would allow you, and the specs could allow you to do that. Now, I have to admit though, in the case of Galaxy phones, right, you do have Samsung DeX, right? So you can actually, I guess to a certain extent, launch those projects, not necessarily use the UI on your phone in order to, work and do all that stuff. You could definitely use your phone and use that as the main computer and then use, a third-party monitor and do work on that. So if you want to do that, obviously you have the ability to do that because the phone itself is pretty specced out. But anyways, going back to my experience has been very good, even in the case of using Samsung DeX, which I have with this phone along with the S23 Ultra that I own. In the case of using Samsung DeX, it's been working beautifully in terms of playing games. I prefer to play on my Galaxy Z Fold because it's a larger display, but playing games here, it was very nice. I tested out, you know, all of the heavy games that I usually play here, and it played very, very nice. Now, I didn't try to edit anything like edit a video off of this, but again, performance has been top notch here. Now let's go ahead and talk cameras here. In terms of the cameras have been really good, right? So we're looking at the same cameras as last year in terms of hardware, right? But you have to remember that on the inside, you know, post-processing, all of that AI work does make this camera better than what you had on the regular S22 Plus from last year, right? So even though it's the same hardware-wise, it's still not really the same camera in terms of results or what you get at the end. Picture quality is better, slightly better here. And again, like I said, a lot of post-processing work here. These are things that you need to account for. So my experience with the cameras has been very, very, very nice. I've taken a number of pictures, including videos, of course, here. This is essentially offering you the same picture quality you would get from the flagship one, the main flagship. I mean, they're all flagship, but the main flagship one, which is the S23 Ultra, it offers you essentially the same thing. So what you have is a 50, 10, and 12 megapixel camera. On the Ultra, of course, you have the 200, and then 10, and 12. But at the end, you know, you won't be able to zoom in or to take pictures of things that are really far like you would on the S23 Ultra, but at the end of the day, this guy here offers you very, very good picture quality. Now, next here, I want to go ahead and share what my experience has been like using this phone or enjoying this display, right? So we're looking at a flat display here. Remember, I've mentioned a number of times that I prefer curved displays, but I also do like flat displays. So with that being said, I also enjoyed this flat display, right? So what you have here is a 6.6 inches flat display. To a lot of you guys who absolutely love flat displays, because I believe the majority of people prefer flat displays. But anyway, so a flat display here, 6.6 inches, of course, you're looking at up to 1750 in terms of nits. So 1750 nits in terms of brightness, right? So you're looking at a phone that you can be out under direct sunlight and you won't have any issues. You won't be over there trying to squint in order to be able to read stuff. It's still crystal clear. Things really do pop. This is an OLED display, by the way, so a dynamic OLED or dynamic AMOLED display like Samsung would call it. So this is something that is calibrated differently by Samsung. If you know a thing or two about Samsung, then you know that they are some of the best display manufacturers out there. But anyway, so dynamic AMOLED display here, the resolution here is 1080 by 2340. That leaves you at about 393 ppi, so very, very pixel dense. So when you look at it, it is crystal clear, super sharp, of course, and colors are super vibrant on here. So this is a display that is just very, very nice. It does support, of course, 120 hertz refresh rate, just like the whole lineup does, right? So the regular S23 and the S23 Ultra, they all support 120 hertz refresh rate. Now, it won't get to the level where it goes from 1 all the way to 120 hertz like the Ultra does, but it is silky smooth at 120 hertz refresh rate. You do have the same Gorilla Glass Victus 2 here, so of course it is pretty resistant and robust against, you know, scratches, and I believe I covered that already. Now, with that being said, let me just go ahead and sum up what my experience has been like using this phone. So just an overall, we could talk about this phone for days, about all of the other attributes that this phone shares, but I want to go ahead and just give you my summary. This is a very, very good phone. To a lot of you, especially people who have large hands, right? I would actually go for this. The only problem is the price, right? At $1,000, I would actually say, if you can add $200, do so and go for the S23 Ultra. But of course, if you are part of the family, you know that we don't spend all of that money just on the phone. I would say just track the best deals that you can. By the way, I'm gonna have, you know, some dynamic links in the description if you want to go ahead and check out what the current best deals are on this phone. Do you own this phone? Are you planning on buying this phone? Let me know in the comment section. Make sure to share this video if you know anyone who's in the market or who would be interested. Make sure to like the video, of course. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I am going to catch you in the comment section. I'm also going to catch you in the next video. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.